We are currently continuing along with Rabbi Yonasan Steif's book, Sefer Mitzvot Hashem, part 3, where he deals with Sheva Mitzvos B'nei Noach, the 7 Noahide commandments. We are on page Shin Chaf Hey, which would be 325, Siman Tes. Again, just by way of introduction or disclaimer, the approach that Rabbi Steif is taking, as we seem to say almost every class, is that anything related to the 7 Noahide commandments, a Noahide is obligated to keep, even if it's in the Torah for the Jewish person. But if it's related to any of the 7, like in our case, we're dealing all about Avodah Zarah and the related things, so then a Noahide would have to keep it as well. And at certain points, of course, Rabbi Steif himself just presents it as a possibility or as a question, and he remains with what we call a tzarich iyun, that we still need to investigate further. So now we're going to go through more details of laws of Avodah Zarah, and much of what we're going to say today actually is pretty clear that it applies to Noachides as well, as is brought down also in the various different books and sources in English that have come out recently, speaking for the Noahide. Okay, so Siman Tes, Shlo Yilenes me'Avodah Zarah, the prohibition of deriving any pleasure or benefit from idolatry, and in the Sefer HaChinuch, this would be, according to his count, mitzvah number 429. Uvichlal zeh, and included in this, bein Avodah Zarah atzma, whether it is the actual idol or whatever that's worshipped itself, bein misham sheha, or whether it's those things which are used to serve it, bein dekrevis shalah, or whether it's things that are offered to it. All of those things are forbidden to derive any pleasure or benefit from them. Aleph. Now again, as we mentioned many times, that when the censorship really, they did not appreciate the term Avodah Zarah, which means foreign service or worship, and therefore it's oftentimes changed to Avodas Kechavim, which literally means serving stars, because I guess that way they felt, as long as you're not serving a star, then that doesn't include us. In other words, as long as they keep it limited to stars or stars and constellations, then they could worship whatever other, deities they believe in, what have you. So therefore, oftentimes when it will say Avodas Kechavim, I'll just read it as if it says Avodah Zarah. Aleph. Avodah Zarah mishamsheh v'tikreves shalah. Idols, or the things that go along with it, and things that are offered to it. V'chol hanaseh b'shvila, and anything which is made for it. Asur bahana, is forbidden to derive any pleasure or benefit from it. Shenemar, for the verse states, V'leisavi soyeva el beisecha, and you shall not bring an abomination or anything disgusting into your house. So from that we see that you can't even just bring it into your possession. Now, it's besides all the verses that speak about the prohibition of worshiping them. Here we have a verse which says, and don't bring anything which is disgusting into your home. And anyone that does derive pleasure from any one of these, loike shtayim, receives 2 sets of lashes. Now again, this is obviously speaking only for the Jew, because we don't find the concept of malchus of the 39 lashes flogging for the Noahide. So this is clearly talking to the Jew. So the Jew would get 2 sets of 39, which means he would get 39 lashes, and then they would take a break, give him perhaps the chance to heal, and then they would give him again another set of 39 lashes. That's the maximum, but if the person can't handle it, so they give him whatever he can handle, and then they let him heal, and then they give him, again, they reevaluate him by the physician of the Jewish court. So, for example, let's say they say that the person cannot handle any more than 9 maximum, not 39, but only 9. Well, then they would give him 9, and then they'd let him, rest up. And when he comes back, whatever it is, weeks later, and this time they say, oh, now he can actually handle 12. And they still only give him 9 because it has to be divisible by 3. So if you can handle 39, then they'd give him all 39, even though beforehand he couldn't handle more than 3 or whatever. Okay. What are the 2 sets? Why is he getting 2 sets of flogging? Achas mishum v'lo isavi. One is because of this prohibition that you shall not bring anything which is a disgusting abomination into your home. V'achas, and one set, mishum v'lo yidbak b'yodcha me'uma min hacherem. There's another verse which says that should not stick to you, should not cleave to your hand, anything from that which is to be considered ostracized. And this refers to anything which was made into a deity, Nachri or Yisrael, whether it was done by a Jew, or whether it was done by a non-Jew or by a Jew. The Kaima Lun, and we have established, we have a ruling, Avodah Zarah Shel Nachri, Avodah Zarah which is belonging to a non-Jew, Asura Miyad, is immediately forbidden as soon as it's manufactured with the intention of worshiping it, as soon as it was made or designated by the non-Jew to worship it as Avodah Zarah, it immediately becomes forbidden. However, by the Jew, if it's owned or manufactured by the Jew, it does not become forbidden to derive pleasure from it until it's actually worshipped. So there is a clear distinction here with regards to the law of the Avodah Zarah, whether it's a non-Jews, which means it becomes forbidden immediately, or a Jews. Beis, bottom of the right-hand column. Asur lehnois me'avodah zara b'shum inyan. Now, when we say cannot derive benefit or pleasure, what does that include? So we say now that includes anything, no form of pleasure. Fa'afilu b'shmiya, oy bereyach, oy bereiyah. And this includes even just hearing. In other words, it's not something tangible. And you might make the argument that, well, just listening to something and enjoying the music, that's not, deriving pleasure. Yes, it is. So even if it's merely hearing or smelling or seeing, looking at it and enjoying the beauty of it. It's although it's not any real physical pleasure, or not tangible, I should say, still seeing and smelling and hearing. And even to smell from the incense or from the frankincense or whatever they're offering, the spice that they are offering as an incense to the Avodah Zarah, it's also forbidden to smell that fragrance, that smell. Amrinan, we say in the Talmud, if one was walking in the public, in the marketplace, down the street, shel avodah zara, of idolatry, and he had a desire to inhale through his nostrils. He wanted to smell the fragrance. Behold, such a person is a sinner. So you need to be careful where you're walking. And if you're walking down the street where this fragrance is there, you need to be in control. And then he tells us to take a look in the Talmud, in Tractate Pesachim 26a, where there it's talking about something completely different, but we could perhaps extrapolate from there and apply it to our case. And that is, if something belongs to hektish, something has been consecrated and it belongs to the Beis HaMikdash, the opposite of Avodah Zarah, it's very holy. and one is not allowed to derive pleasure from that, not because of what we're talking about, but the opposite, because it's designated for Hashem. So the Talmud there is speaking about a voice, just listening, or just looking at something, or smelling. That even though the prohibition or the laws of me'ilah basically means misuse of anything which is consecrated for Hashem. And if the person actually transgressed the me'ilah, so then they would need to bring a special offering, a sacrifice, for transgressing. It's called a guilt offering of me'ilah. So, however, and that would be, for example, if let's say an animal belongs to the Beis Hamikdash, it was designated as a sacrifice. So you can't go ahead, and it was your own animal even. If somebody took their own sheep and they said, behold, this sheep I am designating as a sacrifice, you wouldn't be allowed to shear that animal and use that wool. Or let's say someone is donating, it could even be a non-kosher animal which cannot be used as a sacrifice, but it can be donated and owned by the temple, which means they can then sell it and use the money for either the maintenance or the upkeep or to buy sacrifices. Someone can actually take a horse and donate it to the holy temple. So then, if you were to ride that horse, that would be considered me'ilah. So any actual physical usage in a forbidden fashion of anything which is consecrated for the holy temple is called me'ilah. So what about smelling or just looking or hearing something which has been designated? So although that's not me'ilah, and the person would not bring the offering that he's obligated to bring for me'ilah, mikol mokim isur yesh, however, there still is a prohibition. So what he wants to suggest is, just as in the holy side, it's still forbidden, even though it's nothing tangible, so too when it comes to avodah zarah, even though the person is not tangibly deriving any benefit, it's just the voice or looking at it or smelling it, still it would be forbidden. When it comes to actually the smelling, the fragrance, so there it's explained in the Talmud that it actually is something which is, so to say, has substance to it, and it does constitute me'ilah. Now in the parentheses, the only thing is, once they've already burnt it and now the smoke goes up, so now there wouldn't be me'ilah in smelling or deriving benefit from that, because they already did the mitzvah with it. So there's a distinction as to what point you'd be benefiting from the smell. But it is possible that smell would be considered actually something which is me'ilah. V'im kain, and if that's the case, bereyach chamur isura gam b'avodah zarah. That being the case, when it comes to a fragrance of holy items of the temple, same thing he wants to suggest would be when it comes to avodah zarah, that smelling something which is avodah zarah related can actually be a serious prohibition. Last 4 lines on the page. V'asur lishmoya koil shir shel avodah zarah. It is forbidden to listen to the sound, the voice of chants or songs or hymns of avodah zarah, oy neginois hakoimrim, or the various different songs of the priests, shemenagdim l'avodah zarah, that they play for avodah zarah. No, it's music which is for avodah zarah. So if it's composed and played for the avodah zarah, that would not be permitted for a person, even though the person's intention is not of a desire, they just enjoy the music, would not be allowed. And you're not allowed to look at the beauty of Avodah, say, wow, that idol, forget about the fact that people worship it, that's ridiculous, that's silly, that's foolish, but it's very beautiful. The artistic work of it wouldn't be allowed to do that either. You can't look at it in order to derive benefit from its beauty. If you are truly deriving benefit. So really, it's really subjective. It depends on the individual. You can have two people looking at the exact same thing, and one of them is transgressing and one isn't, because one of them does not appreciate the beauty of it, and the other one does. So the one that does appreciate it and is enjoying looking at it, he'd be transgressing, whereas the other one wouldn't. And even pleasure that comes to a person, be'al, top of the next page, korchoi, against his will, without his intention. Kol sheniskavin lenois asur, as long as he's having in mind to derive pleasure, it's forbidden. Meaning, he didn't purposely try to put himself in that situation. But now that he's in that situation, he can't avoid looking at it. So now, if his intention is to derive pleasure, that's forbidden. So, for example, a person's walking somewhere, he has no choice, or he's driving, and it appears in front of him. So he has to see it. So then it all depends on his intention. Does he want to derive benefit from it or not? I am Psachim Chafei Beis. Then again, same place in the tractate in the Talmud of Psachim, 25b. Uvepsik Reisha. Now there's a concept called psik Reisha. It's one of those terms in the Talmud that became coined as a terminology because of its original literal meaning, but now we just use it as a code. Psik Reisha literally means removal of the head. And the source for that term is that on Shabbos, one of the prohibitions of Shabbos is to slaughter, to take out life of a living creature, killing. So when it comes to Shabbos, the only time things are prohibited is if there is intention involved. If the person wants something to happen. But if that's not their intention, then, and it may not happen, then it wouldn't necessarily be biblically forbidden. Classical example, a person in a garden or outdoors where there's soil or sand as opposed to concrete is dragging a heavy bed or a heavy bench, and it's making grooves in the soil, which is one of the prohibited labors of Shabbos. It's called plowing. You don't have to use an official plow to take a stick and make a groove in the ground. That is plowing. So the person is pulling this heavy bed, they're plowing. However, since that's not their intention, it may not be forbidden. But if something will definitely 100% happen because of the actions of the individual, then we say we don't care about your intention. It's called psik reisha. And the classical example given is if, let's say, there's a child, and I have to understand in the olden days, they didn't have as many manufactured toys for children with plastic and rubber and all these companies. So you had to be a little bit innovative, and you had to come up with your own toys for the children to be amused and play with. A little difficult for us to relate to at times. Like in this example, the individual, let's say the father, wants to give his small child the head of a chicken to play with. Okay? maybe, so there's a live chicken, but he doesn't want to give him a live chicken. He wants to give this infant just the head detached from the body. So can he take an axe, chop off the head, okay, and then perhaps rinse it off or whatever, and then give it to the child? And his sole intention is for the child to have a head of a chicken to play with. He has no intention of killing the chicken. So we say that is absolutely forbidden, because inevitably, without a doubt, if he chops off the head of the chicken, that chicken will die. So that's called psik reisha. That's the literal origin of the term. Having said that, every time you use the term psik reisha, even if it's not Shabbos related, it simply means an act which will definitely cause whatever it is. So v'psik reisha dahainu, meaning she'i efsher lo ilatzim einov. What about a situation where a person cannot close their eyes not to look at the particular avodah zarah that they will benefit from, they will enjoy looking at it? V'latei maznoi, and they cannot close their ears. They simply cannot stuff their ears. They can't put their fingers in the ears or stuff it with cotton or with earplugs. That's not an option. Then afilu kisheina miskaven, then even if the person's not intending on deriving benefit, they're not trying to derive benefit, asur, it is still forbidden, k'moi b'chol psik reisha b'chol atera, like in any case of psik reisha, like the classical example that I gave you when it comes to Shabbos. Anytime something is a psik reisha, if the act is a forbidden act, and it's a psik reisha, it is forbidden. So he's saying the same thing would apply over here. If you have no choice, and you will definitely look at it or listen to it, then the fact that you're not having intention to derive benefit is irrelevant, and it does not remove your transgression. Gimel. Kishem she'asur lehenois me'avodah zara. Just as it is forbidden to have pleasure from avodah zara, kach asur lehahanoisa. So too, one is not allowed to give it pleasure, to cause the avodah zara to benefit from you. And we're going to explain. Lefichach, therefore, Misha Beisoy Samach Lebeis Avodah Zara. Someone's house is adjacent to an idolatrous home, some kind of a church or whatever place, house of worship where they worship Avodah Zara, and a person's house is adjacent to it. V'nafal, and then it collapsed. Your wall, the wall that you share, collapsed. Asur livnoisoi, you're not allowed to rebuild it. Sharei mahanelahan livnois lakoisel, because you are actually giving this house of worship benefit because you're rebuilding their wall. Never mind that it's your wall as well. Doesn't matter who came first and how it got to this situation. Even if you were permitted to be in this situation, you came first or what have you. But now if you're going to rebuild that part of your house, you're actually assisting and giving benefit to this house of worship. Kate said, Yaseh. That's what you're supposed to do. Can't live with one wall of yours missing. What's your prerogative? You need to go into your property 4 cubits, approximately 6 feet. On your property, you have to move in 4 cubits, and then you can build over there. So even though you may be losing some of the space of your home, you don't have a choice. Likewise, you're not allowed to build together in partnership with a non-Jew any type of bridge or arch or anything where they place their avodah zarah on it. You know that they're going to put avodah zarah on it. You're not making the avodah zarah, and that's not your intention. But the fact is, you are assisting in making this structure for the avodah zarah. But you are allowed to build, in the first place, just a large room or building, or you can make the lot or the courtyard where this arch is going to be, because that is another step removed, and that's good enough. Because you're not making something which will serve avodah zarah, you're making something which will serve avodah zarah, and that's permitted. Now, Dalit, this could be pretty practical. Ginois, gardens, v'chanuyois, and shops, stores, shel avodah zarah, which are idolatrous, asur liskor mehen, you're not allowed to rent from them because you're giving money. V'chein gaboyim shnoitim meches la'avodah zarah, asur litin lehem, and likewise tax collectors that are collecting money for avodah zarah, you're not allowed to give them any money. V'hanei milei, these words apply. That's only if the rent or the tax, if those funds will go directly to the avodah zarah itself, that's when it's forbidden. Or to beautify it, or for the things that are going to be offered up to it. However, if the money is going to go for the priests personally, and for their benefit as an individual, for the priest himself, and they're not going to make out of it any of the associated needs for the avodah zarah. It's just in order to pay for the food for the priest, or for his clothing, or personal things of his. Mutar, that would be permitted. And even if it is going for direct needs, expenses of the avodah zarah, if this payment or the tax is on all these citizens, kloimar, meaning that they're collecting it for the needs of the city, of the country, whatever it may be, to pay for the wall, for protection around the city, or to pave the roads, or for the electricity, whatever it may be. And the city also supplies the needs directly for avodah zarah related things. Then you're allowed to pay them anyway, even though some of your money will go to avodah zarah. Since it's indirect and it's not exclusive, then it would be permitted. Because it's not like, oh, we're collecting money now for this avodah zarah. We're collecting money, and that money is going to go for 1,001 things. And even though much of it will go for avodah zarah, that's not the collection. They firstly take it all for themselves, everything that they've collected. And that which then they're going to use that, or some of it, for avodah zarah, it's as if they gave it out of their own pocket. Even though, yes, they have this amount of money because they've collected all this from the citizens, yourselves included, that doesn't matter. It was transferred, and that's it. Now the public has this amount of money, and now the fact that they're using some of it for forbidden things, that's not, it's as if it's not coming from your money. When does this apply? when the garden itself that you're renting or paying for is not made specifically exclusively for avodah zarah. But a garden which is directly part of avodah zarah itself, and it's also in close physical proximity to the avodah zarah. The garden is not just owned by some. Okay, sorry, we need to switch. Okay. Okay. Right with you. All right. So if the garden is directly next to the particular avodah zarah, Azai then, even though the money collected first goes to the priests, then it's also forbidden. But if the garden is not physically right in front of the avodah zarah, even though the money does go to the priests, mutar, then it is permitted. If as long as the money is not going straight to the avodah zarah. Okay, so basically, a few subtle differences over here. We're discussing how it is forbidden and how it is permitted to give money when the money will be used for avodah zarah. So that would, let's say, apply if you have an organization. Let's say, I'm not 100% sure, but let's say the Salvation Army. So why is it called salvation? And who's saving who? So let's just assume that it is avodah zarah related, and they do all sorts of things. They distribute food, they distribute clothing, so they collect and they distribute. So is it just that the organization is philosophically, this is what they believe and what they stand for, or do they actually take money that's given to them and use it for avodah zarah? And even if so, does it first become organization money and then divvied up? So all that can make a difference. And even we said the garden itself, if the garden is not in close proximity to the avodah zarah, then it wouldn't be a problem. So there's a lot of details here. All right, let's go on to the next piece. We're on the top of the left-hand column in Shin, Chaf Vav, 326. Hey, Yesh Mishoimer, there is an opinion that states, Shasul halvois l'tzayrech binyan elilim shel avodah zarah, that it is forbidden to lend money for the purpose of building a building for avodah zarah, or for its ornaments, or for the things which are used to serve it. And how much more so that you can't sell directly to it these ornaments. Could go in, for example, machtois, different types of rakes or tools. Vamenea matzliach, and one who refrains from selling them anything like this will see success. And even to sell them paper, or the olden days parchment, and ink, so that they can write their books of their religions, of their avodah zarah. Gam ken yesh machmirin lois, and also some are strict to forbid it. So in other words, you own an ink company, okay, or you sell printers, and now a company that's going to be printing whatever it may be, the New Testament, whatever it is, they want to buy from you your printers, and they want to, and you know that they're buying it in order to print their materials. There are avodah zarah things. So there are those that say you need to be strict, and you wouldn't be able to supply them with the paper or the ink, etc. And furthermore, you should not bind their books except for the books of their judgments, of their scribes and their judges. But otherwise, a book of an idolater, which could very well have avodah zarah in it, you can't even bind it for him. So in other words, if you own a print shop and someone comes to you and they're paying you money to print, you say, I could care less. I'm a very devout, believing Noahide or Jew, and I have my beliefs, and I'm very strong about it. But for business, whatever you want, how you pay me, and I'm not gonna. It's like none of my business what kind of garbage or nonsense you're printing. You're paying me, and I'm a service. Doesn't work that way. There's room to be strict and not to print things which are forbidden. But if you're concerned of angering them, and then that could lead to trouble, so then whatever you can, just try to avoid. I don't know if you remember, a number of years ago, I mean, there have been so many incidents, so many topics. We're living in such interesting times. But I remember, I don't remember all the details. Some of you may remember exactly the details, where and when. There was a bake shop that would make cakes by order, custom order. You can make it for weddings, anniversaries, well, whatever the occasion was. And someone or someones ordered a wedding cake. And this bake shop in the United States, when they realized that it was for a same-gender wedding, they refused. And they said, that's not a wedding, and we're not making any wedding cake for that, and that's against our beliefs, against our principles. And I think they were sued, and became a big thing in the news, that do they have a right or not? I mean, it's a private company, and I guess they can deny a client or what a potential, but can they do it on such grounds, or is that considered to be, having a bias or whatever? Anyway, so if someone comes and they order by you, you sell paper, and they want to use the paper to print avodah zarah material, or you sell light bulbs, and it's getting close to December 25th, and that they want these light bulbs for their tree or whatever. So can you deny it? So he's saying, if you're afraid that it's going to cause friction and discord, then try to avoid it as best as you possibly can. Now, number 6 was very relevant for many Jewish communities around the turn of the century. I don't mean 25 years ago, about 125 years ago, about 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago in the United States, it was a big deal. What happened? Vav. Mishamoicher Beisoy, one who sells his house, Lavoida Zara, for Avodah Zara, Biratzin willingly. Now, he knows, it's not like, oh, you're just selling your house to some random, guy, and then he ends up making it into some church. But no, if you're selling your house, your property, to Avodah Zara knowingly, willingly, Hadomi Masurim, the money that you made from that sale that he paid you, you're not allowed to derive benefit. So what do? Take the money, and the expression is throw it into the salt sea, what's called the Dead Sea. No, it's just destroy it. Let the coins. If he paid you, I'm old fashioned. I don't know about Zelle and Cash App and WhatsApp or whatever all those other things are, how you can transfer money in an instant. I know about writing out a physical check. So if someone gave you a check, you sold them a house for Avodah Zarah, for the use of Avodah Zarah, and they paid you with a check, you are to rip up that check. If they paid you with cash, well, I don't know if it's legally permitted to destroy the cash, but you cannot use that, so you destroy the cash. If they paid you a good old-fashioned way with gold or silver coins, that's what he's saying, you throw them into the Dead Sea. But how about if they forced you? You didn't do it willingly. They forced you to sell, and they take it away from him against his will. They're taking his house, and then they place in it Avodah Zarah. In that case, Adomim Mutarim, the money that you received from their payment, which was done by force against your will, you're allowed to derive benefit from it. And you actually should, go in their court system and take them and take the money so that they don't, have use of it. Now, when I say that this was relevant here in the United States, so as the neighborhoods were changing, and about 100 years ago, apparently, there were very, very wealthy Jews that build these amazing, humongous, beautiful edifices for synagogues, for shuls, for places the Jews would come and daven. Huge, beautiful, beautiful buildings. And I guess they didn't foresee that they're not going to remain there too long. And when I say they're not going to remain there, including their children and grandchildren, because the neighborhood changed and became very dangerous, and low-class individuals moved in, and they moved en masse. Jews, that's the story of the Jews of the diaspora, the demographics. They're moving from one place to the next, and they keep on moving, sooner or later. Now, what about all those buildings? Humongous buildings, and get so much money for it. And the people that were moving in were very interested in buying those buildings. Almost every time they wanted to use it for a church. It's so perfect, so huge, everything. And it was very difficult because the shuls didn't want to sell it as a church, but many times they felt that they don't have a choice. There was no other buyer. And that's why, very sad, you can even see it today, very, very sad. You go to certain churches, which have all of the artifacts of a church, and if you look on the stained glass that hasn't been changed ever since they actually built it, you can see some Jewish symbols, the Magen David, the Star of David, Hebrew letters, or let's say the building itself, so engraved in the cement of the building, you'll find, it'll say congregation such and such with Hebrew letters. Very sad. They didn't want to destroy that because it's very beautiful. So they just left it as such. There were some shuls, to their credit, which would not sell, and they wouldn't sell to the non-Jews. and they took a great loss. And there are different stories of what happened, but it's forbidden to sell a shul directly for a church. But it wasn't easy for them to uphold this particular law. All right, so we're up to Zion. And at this point, we're going to open up for questions, comments, clarification, or what have you. Please, I cannot see you guys. So, Bob, if you can do your thing.
James Gosnell.
Are you muted?
James, we do not hear you.
Usher P.
Yes, Rabbi.
You guys hear me now?
Yeah, so
Oh, there we go.
okay.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I had to reset my mic.
One at a
Thank you,
time.
Rabbi Turner. Thank you. Well, now I can't hear you guys, so I'm just gonna have to speak. So the Rambam has different Gedarim. He's got the Bnei Noach and the Noachri, the Goy guy. How do I mean, I kind of know how to approach. Usually it's not so cut and dry. Say I need a book bound. I go into a Jewish bookstore. What is the proper procedure? Is there a proper procedure? Because right now I'm just kind of like winging it. Let's say I got to go into a bookstore. I got to have a book bound. He might think, hey, this guy's a Nochri. I don't know him. What should we do? What should B'nai Noach do? What should non-Jews that are studying the seven and keep the seven? How should we approach this?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you.
Yeah, but I don't know if James can.
Can you? Okay, yes, I can hear you. I had to reset everything. I'm sorry, I'm having a technical issue. So
All right.
I would have had to listen to the recording. Thank you.
Okay, so even if the Noahide will do the right thing, but since the Jew may not be up to date or may be somewhat uninformed as to the Noahide, etc., so he may be overly cautious. So first of all, what type of a book are you bringing him? If you're bringing him a kosher Jewish book, then he might be concerned and say, why is this guy studying Torah? He's not supposed to be learning Torah. So I don't want to have anything to do with assisting him. Now, if you're bringing him a non-kosher book, then again, he says, I don't want to assist a non-Jew in doing anything which is forbidden. So really, if it's like completely neutral, like for example, it's just comics or sports or things like that, or just a novel that has nothing to do with religion or philosophy, just like something kind of neutral, then there should be no problem, and he should not have any hesitations. But if you walk in there with, let's say, a Tanakh, and you want him to bind it, so he may wonder, why is he learning Tanakh? And he may think, again, either direction. Now, what should you do? I don't know if it'll help to tell him that you are a Noahide and that you study and that you observe categorically the 7 Noahide commandments, and that you categorically denounce any type of Avodah Zarah. If he'll be able to relate to that and to appreciate that, then you tell him that, and then he should have no problem assisting you. But if he does not accept that yet, or if it seems too foreign to him and doesn't get it, then what can you do? Just hope that he will not be so careful as to try to wonder who you are, because otherwise, when a non-Jew comes to a Jewish establishment to buy something, if you're selling cars or you're selling shoes, what's the difference? I don't care who it is. It's not, I don't have to be concerned. But if the guy is coming and he's buying something of reading material or studying, it's a different story. So there's only so much you can do.
Right. Very good. Yeah. A lot of us sometimes, particularly if non-Jews that are new to the seven, they like, oh, he didn't like me or he didn't accept me or things like that. And I try and tell people like, hey, this is new, like non-Jews coming to the Jewish community. For thousands of years, non-Jews haven't been too nice to the Jewish community. So on one perspective, we have to realize just what's going on. At the positive side, though, this is Geula, like this is the redemption, and so we're like, this is it. We're trying to be kind to one another, and even just by saying the Sheva mitzvahs, like like you just said, he might not be up on the Rebbe's teachings about the Sheva mitzvahs and things like that. So we can operate on both sides. We can interact with the Jewish community and the non-Jewish world. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Asher.
Yes, Rabbi. Yeah, I just remembered when you were talking about the not giving something of benefit to idolaters. I remember a story of Rashi's father. He has a very precious jewel, and some priest wanted to buy it and use it for Christian practices. So he just threw it in the sea or whatever.
Right.
And he was rewarded becoming the father of Rashi. Anyways, my question is, so for example, during the holidays, you hear Silent Night. So it's forbidden to derive pleasure from that. What if you steal their melody and then you put new words, say non-idolatrous words, but that's the same melody? Is that permissible? Also, the Hanukkah bush. I mean, it's like the counterpart of Christmas tree. Is that legit? Is that kosher? Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so let me address the first part first. The first part of your question happens to be an excellent point. And the truth is, it's not so simple. Meaning, if there is a melody that was either composed, the tune was composed to be sung as a carol or a hymn for Avodah Zarah, that was the intention of the composer. Or it was composed and then it was adopted by them and was taken and it's used for that exclusively. So now to take that and use it for something neutral or even for something sacred in serving Hashem is not simple. I would say, from my understanding, that a regular person, even a Jew, cannot do that and doesn't have the spiritual power to do that as a rule. Is it impossible? Maybe not. Maybe certain tzaddikim, certain very saintly, righteous people have the power to do that, to take something from the total, what we call the three totally impure klipos, and to transform it and bring it out of the domain of klipa into kedusha. That's very unusual, and you need superpowers to do that. So otherwise, if the tune itself is used for Avodah Zarah, I do not think that under normal circumstances, the tune without any words or even with putting in it very kosher Jewish words, Torah words, is not allowed. It would be like taking Torah and putting it in a non-kosher vessel, or to use a very concrete physical example, it's like taking kosher meat and cooking it in a non-kosher pot. That you didn't elevate the pot and you didn't ignore the pot. You actually made the meat unkosher. The meat now is unedible. It's inedible for a Jew. It was slaughtered properly. It was koshered properly. Everything was good. It was perfect, but because it was cooked in that pot. So similarly with the song, the tune. Now Hanukkah bush, I think, is to the best of my knowledge, is complete nonsense and should be totally avoided. And at best, it's sort of like apologetics. Like we want to be part of the society and the culture without transgressing anything of Avodah Zarah or anything like that. So with some invention, I wouldn't be surprised if some smart Jew is the one who actually came up with it. So some invention came up, and therefore, whether it's because of the neighbors or whether it's because there's assimilated or intermarriage of a Jew and a non-Jew, which is the worst thing, and therefore, for the sake of, so to say, peace of the home and harmony, they kind of made some type of a compromise that they're going to get this tree, and he's going to call it what he calls it, and she'll call it the Hanukkah bush, or whatever, vice versa, depending on which spouse is the Jewish one. I don't think that that's the right thing to do. There's no such thing as a Hanukkah bush, and the whole thing is nonsense. And we have to just completely and categorically stay away from Avodah Zarah. That's my personal opinion. Others may disagree.
Thank you, Rabbi.
I think that wraps it up for today's class. So remember, everybody, I did not mention the date. Today is the 11th of Elul, 5785. And soon we're going to be having we're going to be running into the new year and the month of Tishrei, so we're going to have a lot of classes that will be canceled because of the holiday season. But we are looking at next week, with the help of Hashem. As far as I know, we will be having class next week as well. So we're up to page Shin Chaf Vav Zayin. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And may everybody have lots of success in learning, teaching, promoting the 7 Noahide commandments, making this world a godly world. And we're living in the very special times. We're on the threshold of the redemption, Yemois HaMashiach, the Messianic era. And we should merit to have the full and complete revelation of Melech HaMashiach now. All the best.
Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Amen.
Thank you very
Amen.
much.
Thank you, Rabbi Turn. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Rabbi. Thank
Thanks,
you, Mr.
everyone.
Wells.